Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese, and I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I am recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording, and to elders both past, present and emerging. So today I want to talk about this concept of, do you launch big bang or do you iterate your change? And I'm going to give you a couple of guidelines to consider and reflect upon for your change, because there are pros and cons to both approaches, but definitely when looking at the impact of your change, that is going to steer you in a certain direction. As well as that, the type of change that you're introducing may mean that you cannot avoid an all-in type of change because of system restrictions or the fact that a process is a core process and there's simply just too many impacts down that supply chain for you to be able to iterate, versus technology change where you may be able to iterate dependent upon who you can release the system to. And so when we talk about big bang versus iterative, you might also be considering the concept of a pilot or a beta group, how to pilot, prove up the change, and then roll it out further, or whether you simply just roll out the change across the board. So let's go through some of the, dependencies that you might have, which will help steer you to a natural outcome regarding the two options in front of you. First one is impact. So who is impacted? How broadly are they impacted? When considering up the line and down the line processes, so what inputs might be impacted, what outputs might be impacted, handoffs that are impacted, how broadly does the change reach? Is it simply internal or internal and external? Is there some way when you look at the internal customer group or the internal groups who are impacted, when considering that, can you actually separate the internal teams versus the customer, or does the customer and will the customer be impacted? When looking at the change itself and whether it's process as well as system, as well as structure, what is the sequence? Does all have to change at once? And a lot of those assessments are going to determine whether you can actually go big bang or whether you have the option to pilot first and iterate from there. Now, of course, with all change, you're going to have an embedding phase. So embedment and embedding allows you to iterate as you go anyway, because I haven't seen many changes where there's been absolute silence after the go live, where it's been seamless, no issues. I've only experienced that once in my career. So through many years of change. The size of the change, and so if it's an operational change contained within a team, you are more than likely going to switch it on within that group. If you have multiple teams who are impacted, if there's going to be resistance from multiple teams in relation to the change, part of the strategy you might have is to pilot it, select some groups to start to roll it out to, so that you can prove it up. And potentially a factor in this is going to be your leadership group and their appetite for risk. If you go a big bang approach, and because some may have been part of big launches which have had nothing but issues, then there might be more of an appetite to roll it out iteratively in a pilot fashion because of past experience. And so leadership appetite for risk, and then whether the project has been able to mitigate those risks so that the leadership team are comfortable to switch it on. All of these things affect the option that the leadership team or the project manager or the change manager might prefer. So consider that if you're introducing a change which has big system implications, it is complex, and the risk and the work hasn't necessarily been done, you can descale or scale down the risk by simply rolling it out to a smaller group and then iterating from there. So worth considering, although from a technical standpoint, you really want your IT group, your technology team to weigh in on this from a technical standpoint, because they may have two systems running in parallel. It may result in complexity for them. That might happen for a period of time regardless, but also the span in which there needs to be engagement to roll out may mean that they simply want to do it once, run the two systems, then switch one off. And versus do a pilot, scale up, like it's a lot of effort to do that. So you want to make sure that all of the different subject matter expert areas have weighed in on the options and assessed and provided a documented assessment about what option would be best from their standpoint, so that leadership can make an informed decision based on expert advice with all the pros and cons laid out. Now, of course, if you roll out a system big bang anyway, there's nothing that stops you from iterating on that system once it's been rolled out. And oftentimes, straight away, as soon as a launch is done, there's a backlog that exists based on what you could implement at that time, because let's face it, everyone will be under time pressure. So you never really get to get the end product out the first time. It would be a luxury in this day and age to be able to have rolled out something that didn't need some sort of amendment, uplift, iteration, improvement after you've gone live. So from a change perspective, what you want to do though is consider, how do I get a proper cycle in place to be able to communicate on an ongoing basis about this system, about the changes that are coming through? How do I make sure that I've got an ongoing assessment that can happen? They can happen also fast based on a release cycle, which might be as short as 2 weeks if it's true agile, where there's little uplift happening and changes and iterations. And how is that communicated with the teams as we go and roll out the changes? So putting some of that in play is helpful and can assist in getting I know I use the word agile. I use that a bit tongue-in-cheek, but mainly because that is a discipline, but in a flexible way, in a fast, flexible, responsive way, where you want the change cycle supported by strong communications and communications to frontline users. You're not going to have the luxury of, yes, let's go through a briefing every 2 weeks, unless you have a phone line set up where everyone can dial in, or a Teams chat where everyone dials in every 2 weeks just to get an update on what that looks like, as well as system support where alerts come up as to the changes that have been made. And then, of course, if there's a bigger change and there's training required, that you factor that in and you're able to roll that out in potentially a larger cycle of change that's going through the system. So think about that. The structures in place that help you iterate, if that's the case, even if you choose the big bang option, it can be more efficient. If you don't get the benefit of piloting and building up trust, you want to ensure that you have a really strong change plan and the 3-month embedding phase very clear, resourced, because it can take up to 3 months to reinforce the delivery, reinforce the best practice, and ensure that it is bedded in, as well as identify the other opportunities for improvement. People often want to improve on something that's really great straight away, that there's a feedback channel that's available, and that can have two-way communication with individuals who might suggest further improvements, an operating backlog, and away you go. But there's a longer tail. If you're doing a pilot, you do get the benefit of a lot of that user testing up front. You might even put it on pause before you do the complete rollout to get appropriate fixes in place. So it's a different pathway. And as I mentioned, get all of your subject matter experts to sit and assess the two options to be able to provide feedback, to provide recommendations to leadership, and get an idea of leadership appetite. That is a key influence point, as well as from a financial perspective, what do those two pathways look like? What are they costed up as? Because that often weighs and determines the future, because that often determines the preferred pathway. Financials, risk, impact, timing, and delivery, readiness, all can affect that decision around big bang or pilot. And as I mentioned to you before, around some of those factors of level of impact, from a systems technical perspective, is it even possible to do a pilot, or are our hands forced to have to roll it out from a technical standpoint? The effort to do both, are we resourced? Have we got the budget? These things, as these questions are worked through, these are the things that can point you in the direction of pilot or big bang rollout. If you want a checklist of some of the items I mentioned today, go to myvirtualchangemanager.com, go to Season 5, Episode 18, and there will be a checklist that you can download, which can help you next time you're coming into this arena or having to consider and communicate the decision around, do we go small first and scale up, or do we do big bang? I hope this episode has been somewhat intriguing, something that you can reflect upon. And of course, as I mentioned, we have resources for you at myvirtualchangemanager.com, which you can access, which will help you to determine which way to go, or help you do the thinking to have a recommendation put together for leadership to decide. That's the role that they play. You should reinforce that. Make sure that you do have that change leadership and stakeholder engagement on the decision. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening. And just remember that change matters, because you, your people, your purpose, it all matters. Have a great day.